Hey everyone, I'm Maggie Shoddy. This is Module 1 for EDL 850, School of Law. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in Northeast Kansas, a small town called Marysville. I graduated from Kansas State University with my bachelor's in elementary education, and I actually came back to Marysville. My first 2 years of teaching, I taught at a private Lutheran school in Marysville. And then these last 2, I moved to the public school, and I'm a kindergarten teacher there. So I just completed my 4th year of teaching. I love being in the general education classroom, but I am getting my master's in instructional technology. Getting my master's, my goal was just to grow as a teacher. I think being a leader in the school is important, and I think one way that I could do that is through technology. In the foreseeable future, I don't see myself leaving the general ed classroom, but who knows what's coming in 15 years, I guess. A little bit more about me. I coach softball at Marysville High School. I raise cattle, and I'm involved in our family farming operation. So in my free time, you can find me on the farm, or you can find me playing a sport, doing some type of activity. I like to stay pretty busy. The other fun fact that I have is I'm a 4th generation teacher. So my mom is a teacher, and my grandma and my great grandma were both teachers. I have multiple aunts and uncles and cousins who are also teachers. So family events are definitely full of knowledge, I guess. Okay, so where's the support come from for public schools? And I'm going to start with the local level. Local support, school boards are the big one, and then funding comes from our taxes and then community support. So for school boards, states create school districts throughout the state, and then those districts elect a school board. So the school board is going to decide almost everything of your school. They're going to decide how to run it, how to operate it. They hire a superintendent, and then they're also in charge of hiring your personnel. They're in charge of your curriculum, determining the school calendar, things like that. But when I think of support, I think of funding. So one of the main sources of funding is portions of property taxes, home, businesses, land, all of that within a district help funding the school. Local responsibilities. Like I said, Marysville Board of Education and then the superintendent are the 2 big ones at the local level. The Board of Education is an elected position, and they serve 4-year terms. It's volunteer, it's unpaid, but in the Board of Education, there's offices on the board. So the president would be like the highest, obviously, but make or break a tie, things like that. So the superintendent is kind of the CEO of the school. In Marysville, we're the Bulldogs, so you might think of them as the top dog of the school, the face of the school. And our superintendent, he's actually new. Michael Couch is his name. It's a hired position. It's a paid position. Some of his responsibilities would be in charge of the long-range planning. He's a budgeter for our district. His main question might be, how would I improve the district? He evaluates the administrator. So as teachers, we get evaluated by our admin, but our admin get evaluated by our superintendent. Another big thing that the Board of Education and your superintendent do for your school are bond issues. And that's kind of where your community support comes from also. So community support is a big one at the local level, and I think a school with community support is way better off. So the Board of Education, their responsibilities, like I stated in the previous slide, hiring personnel, day-to-day operations, approving curriculum, approving district calendar, things like that. But the Board of Ed and the superintendent work very closely together. So moving on to the state, when I think of state support, I think of guidance. Okay, so the states establish their own departments of education, and most of the time that authority is passed down to the local school boards to make decisions for their districts, but that can be taken back to the state government at any time. So we receive the standards from the state. They create those benchmarks and the framework for the subjects taught. And the states actually provide almost half of the operating costs of a school. So that's what those taxes, those income and sales tax, are providing the operating tax, and that's almost half of what the schools get. So the responsibilities from the state, we have a Kansas Commissioner of Education, Dr. Randy Watson, and we have the State Board of Education. Dr. Randy Watson, or the commissioner, is actually appointed by the State Board of Ed. This is a paid position, and he would oversee the day-to-day operations of the State Department of Ed. So Kansas State Department of Education, that's being overseen by the Commissioner of Ed. And then the State Board of Education is an elected position coming from 10 different districts, and the research cited it's not a paid position, but they are the ones that collect all the data. They're big with the state accreditation process. They create the standards, things like that. So they give lots of guidance to those local governments. So local and states giving all of that information to the local levels. And moving on to federal support. Federal support suggests the policies. They collect the data, they measure the outcomes, they evaluate performance. So they're really the ones that are looking at things. If schools aren't performing up to their standards, then they're going to look at your underperforming teachers, or they're going to look at the things that you're doing and try to tweak what you're doing and help you. Federal income is only about 8% of a school's income, but that 8%, or that income that you're getting from the federal level, comes with a lot of rules and regulations. So basically they're giving you that money and they're saying, here's what you can do with it and here's what you can't do with it. So it's basically, this is what you use it for when you get it from them. Federal level, I think of 4 principles, and this was a really good pullout from Mr. Harris. Okay, so the first one talks about equal education for everyone. So it's protecting that right to education no matter your race, your gender, your ethnicity, if you're disabled or not. Okay, everyone's getting that equal education. Number 2 is equal access to education. So high needs students, those that are living in poverty, those with disabilities. Okay, there's plenty more, but those are just some examples. That equal access to education, you're going to give everyone the same access to it. Number 3, support for research and development. Okay, and this goes at the state and local levels. And the last principle that they define of the rural federal government is the support of continuous improvement of schools, and that's also at the state and the local. So the federal level responsibilities, we have a Secretary of Education, and her name's Betsy DeVos. She's actually appointed by the president. So she kind of has the say in it. The USDE and the Congress also have some say in it. All of these are obviously paid positions, things like that. But when I think of federal support, it's about equality in public schools. Moving on to our components. So component 1 is all about evaluating, developing, and implementing. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back real fast because one question on here was which level has the most power and control over public ed. So I wanted to get that before I get the next ones. I think this can go, there's not really a right or wrong answer, but in my opinion, I would say the state level has it, because a lot of what we do in schools comes from what the state is telling us to do. So what do we teach? The standards that the state's giving us. What do we test? The assessments that the state's giving us. So our local level does a lot for each school district because they know their district best, but they're doing that because of what the state is telling us. So I think the state level has the most power and control over our public education. Okay, now we're moving into components. Okay, 6.1 is all about evaluating, developing, and implementing management, communication, technology, school level governance, and operation systems that support each student's learning needs and promote the mission and vision of the school. To me, the local level has the most influence on this one. This component, I think, focuses on the students' needs and obviously personalizing things for each school. That's obviously what the local level does. Your state's not telling you everything that your district needs to do. The local, your Board of Education is telling your schools what to do. Marysville, Kansas, my school, is not going to look the same as the biggest school in Kansas City. Okay, so the local level tells us and kind of breaks it apart, personalizes that learning for your district. Component 6.2, evaluate, develop, and advocate for a data-informed and equitable resourcing plan that supports school improvement and student development. To me, that is the state level. This component makes me think of state accreditation. Okay, and this stems from the state. The school improvement plans that we put into place to improve our schools, the standards that we're teaching to improve student development, that's all from the state. In component 6.3, reflectively evaluate, communicate about, and implement laws, rights, policies, and regulations to promote student and adult success and well-being. To me, this hits on all three of them. All three levels, local, state, and federal, have an influence on this component. Obviously, the federal creates those policies, those guidelines for schools, and they provide that equal rights to everyone. The states then develop the standards to promote student success, and then the local schools take those standards and know how to personalize learning for the success of the students and the adults in their district. So I think all three of those have some influence on that component. And to wrap it up, when we put all of the support together, all the supports of the education success of each student and adult, I think it's just a trickle-down effect. The federal level is fairly broad, okay? Equal access, equal education, they support research, and they support state and local improvement. And then the state takes what the federal level gives, and they create the standards, and they tell the districts what to teach and what to test to prepare their students for success. And then the local takes what the state tells us and gives and creates day-to-day operations. They decide what the students and adults in their district need to be successful. And then all three of those, it's important for the local level to keep in mind all levels, K through 12. And they take all those levels and they find something, and when all three work together, it makes everyone happy. It makes the student successful. It makes the adult successful, and the well-being of everyone is top-notch. So I can't wait to learn with all of you this summer, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.